Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Mountaineer Locker Room Then and Now special episode that we have for you this evening. We appreciate everyone tuning into the show. And as always, at the beginning, we'd like to ask that you like and subscribe on YouTube. It helps us keep this kind of thing going. In light of the events of this past week, we've reached out to a very special guest tonight, and we are thrilled to have this person on with us, a close friend, grew up with Jerry West, and we all know Jerry's passing this past week, and we've talked to several people about accolades and memories and that sort of thing, but we couldn't think of anyone any better suited for this than the fabulous Willie Akers. Mr. Akers has agreed to come on tonight, share with us his thoughts about Jerry West. We're also going to talk about his fantastic career. I'm going to read a little bit of his bio here before we bring him on. He lettered at West Virginia from 1958 to 60. Played on a great WVU squads that earned the nation's #1 ranking in 1958. Advanced to the NCAA finals in 1959 and lost by 1 point to Cal. Those teams, when he played, were 81-12. Won 2 Southern Conference championships, 2 conference tournaments, 3 NCAA appearances. He was named the Southern Conference All-Tournament team as a senior. Averaged 7.2 points, 6.3 rebounds over his career, and served as the team captain in 1960. And there's, of course, a whole lot more to that. Most people my age remember Willie Akers as Coach Akers, as he spent a long-term career at Logan High School. I believe 25 years is what I read in the bio. 4 state championships, and just had a tremendous run from his days at Logan. And he is, of course, revered throughout that county and the state. Like I said, people like me who have been in the coaching world and been around a little while certainly remember him as a wonderful basketball coach and a wonderful person. And I think it's going to be an interesting conversation with him tonight. First, I'll go ahead and bring on Frank Fear. Frank, if you want to jump in and join us here, we welcome Frank. He is the other host. I don't like to call him co-host. He's the other host and of the show. And Frank, we are delighted to have Willie Akers with us tonight, a legend himself, talking about another legend, of course, his great friend Jerry West.
What an honor it is, Greg, and we really appreciate Mike Dunlap and Willie's son, Chad, for making this possible. We know that Willie's been on a number of media interviews since Jerry passed away, but you're absolutely correct that when you think about WVU basketball and West Virginia basketball as a state over the last half century, his name really comes up to the top of the list, and a member of the WVU Sports Hall of Fame and the West Virginia Hall of Fame. Just an incredible person.
And also the Logan High School Hall of Fame.
That's right.
Inducted in 1994. So, and you look at, and again, I'm not going to spend all the time reading this, but you look at his records as a coach, just amazing. And, I coached basketball, high school basketball as a head coach for 14 years. And I don't want to even put my record out there in comparison to this.
Right.
So we are tickled to death to have with us tonight legendary basketball coach and a friend of Jerry West, Mr. Willie Akers. Coach Akers, it is fantastic to see you. We appreciate you taking some time. I know you've been getting bombarded, I'm sure, with requests because of your close relationship with Mr. West. We appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight.
Glad to be here. It's a sad time, but it's unfortunately it had happened, and we have to look back at.
All right. Well, I said, one thing we all can take from this, and talking about people passing, that sort of thing. You look at the life that they lived and the legacy they left behind, and his 86 years on this earth. What a story! And the legacy that he leaves behind is unbelievable. And just to add a little likeness to this story, before we came on, I was sitting here looking through some videos and things of Jerry West, and somebody had posted a picture on TikTok, and it had a number of players from West Virginia who are the logo of the NBA, and it had West Virginia and had a big bar up here, and it had Pitt. 0. So we're up on Pitt. So the people are using that. So, but anyway, your relationship with Jerry started a long time ago. I think I read where you guys attended Mountaineer Boys State there in Jackson's Mill, and in the mid-50s. You guys had a close relationship, obviously, throughout the remainder of his life. Just reflect a little bit on that, if you will.
I sure will. We first met at Boys State when we were 11th graders, and he was an honorable mention All-Stater, and we had 4 or 5 other All-Staters already there. And a friend of mine brought him over and said he wanted to play basketball. And then, of course, I'd heard about him because I knew he scored some points in Charleston area. But we became friends, and we started to play the game. He and I got together, and we're playing other guys. Well, right off the bat, we were throw the ball up and go, and the guy went in for a layup, and he just jumped up and blam, he slammed it across the room. And so after that, the next thing you know, he makes this fantastic move toward the basket, stops and pops the ball in. And I said, my goodness, where did he come from? And before that was over, us All-Staters knew what was going on. He was better than us. And in my mind, he was really great. And we became real close friends. And from that time on, we played at Morgantown in the championship game or my semifinals with him. He beat us. We had a great game. And we kind of made a truce that we were going to the same school, West Virginia University. And we stuck by that. Of course, we had a lot of visitors to come before us to see us, and a lot of coaches would come by. And I remember one thing familiar with me is that I was living in Mullins, and I had a meeting with Fred Schaus. He was stopping by. Of course, we'd already met before, but he was stopping by, and all of a sudden, guy from VPI, Chuck No, pulled up, and the guy from Maryland was there, all wanting to talk to me. Well, the guy from Maryland said, look, I just left Jerry's home, and Jerry said if you would go to Maryland, he would go to Maryland. Wow. And I looked at him and said, well, I don't know about that. I said, I haven't talked to him. And he said he kept wanting me to talk. But anyway, he left there thinking that as soon as those guys left, I would talk to him and tell him. And I called Jerry and told him I wouldn't. He said, I didn't mean to do that. He said, I wanted to get away. He said, 3 or 4 of them up here wanting me to. And I told him, if Willie went there, I'll go there. So that's how we were.
So we have to thank Willie Akers for Jerry West being at WVU.
Well, he was going there anyway. He just wanted me to take the pressure.
Yeah, he wants to give the heat to you.
Yeah.
You know, we've talked a lot about him, Frank and I, and we look back at his his scoring averages, his shooting percentages, all those things we talked about. You know, we know he was a great player, but what made him? I mean, you know, what I told Frank last night, one of the things that stuck out of my mind looking at his credentials, his record, statistics, whatever you want to call them. And in 14 years in the NBA, he never had a technical foul or an ejection. And I thought, you know, that tells a little bit about what type of person he was. But what in your mind? I mean, you were a tremendous basketball coach. Made him other than just the flat out skill, but what made him the type of player and person he was?
You know, people that are good basketball players, great basketball players, spend a little extra time, work harder, do so and so. But Jerry was the type of guy that when we first went to West Virginia, Bobby Joe Smith and another guy had an old gym down there in Morgantown, and we slept in there at 2:00 in the morning. And Bobby Joe and Combs that was there at the time were real good players, and they wanted to play Jerry and I. So we played them 2-on-2. We beat them all night long. And it was 3 hours later, they still hadn't beat us, and they were going crazy. And we decided we'd play one more game, and we did, and we let them beat us so we would get out. But that's the kind of guy he was. We lived close to the college stadium there, where field house rather, and we were within 2 minutes to get to the field house where we lived. A lady named Ann Denardi and her Linda Denardi, and they were pharmacists, so on. And there's a picture you just threw up there of Ann Denardi, and we would go down and play, and we'd be there 3 hours, maybe 4, and still playing. And all of a sudden, we'd say, "Well, it's about time to go in back home or do something else to eat or whatever." And Jerry said, "I'll be along a little bit later." So an hour later, here he comes into the house, and his favorite thing was he would take jump shots, fall away, the way he was famous for, and he would shoot that 100 times before he'd leave there, maybe 200 times, and be always doing the extras. And he was always in great condition. He wasn't one of these guys that ran around drinking or anything. He was straight as an arrow. And in fact, all of us were. It wasn't known like it is now. But that's the things that he worked at everything. Even when he was hurt, we had a camp, and he had a camp, and he hurt his knee, had surgery. He came to that camp. He brought a thing to work his knee. He would work hours at a time on that knee, getting it back. Finally, it got bigger than the other one, and he was stronger in that leg than he was the other one. So the guy just plus his physical part of his arms were so long. I'm 6'5". He's 6'3". He had an 8-inch reach on that.
Wow.
8 inches. So that makes him whatever. I mean, he was just real. So the man had physical ability. Mentally, he was tough. We had a press that was really good for, beating teams. All four of us had positions. He was a roamer. He could do what he wanted to. He could read places, and he just automatically knew where that ball was going. And he was so quick with the long arms, grabbing it and so on. So he's just a wonderful, wonderful person.
Back to what you said about him taking those shots. I'm a talk show nerd. I listen to all these shows on the radio all the time, and there was a coach, somebody this morning I was listening to, and they were talking about a camp they had gone to, coach's clinic, and they had Jerry there, and he was going to do a presentation on shooting. Yeah. And this guy said that he goes out and he starts off on the basket, moves back a little bit, keeps moving. Finally, he's taking 25-foot jumpers. He said he did this for 35, 40 minutes, and he said he was talking the whole time. Make sure you keep that elbow here and all those things that, you coach. And so when he got finished, he said it was a legitimate workout. So he come over, he was soaked in sweat where he'd done it so hard, so fast. And they talked and explained everything all the while he was doing it. And he said, when he got finished, he walked over to those guys and he said, "Now listen, everything I told you while I was shooting, you can ignore." He said, "But the one thing you got to do is take 1,000 of those shots every day if you want to be good." And he said, "That's what I do." And so I said that right there tells you a little bit about his work ethic and everything. Well, some of your memories of you played in the championship game. You've upset some big name teams. You had a tremendous record. I think it was 81-12 while you're at WVU. What's some of your fondest memories of those times?
Well, first of all, on that thing you said about shooting, I witnessed that 15 times, and
so you saw it.
Anyway, as far as the us being champions, it was something that was great. And we, as a freshman team, we couldn't play varsity, and we beat everybody. In fact, we had a game with the varsity and freshmen, and we were ahead, and Fred Schaus pulled the referees over and made some fouls, and we lost the game by a couple of points. But anyway, our sophomore year was a good year, great year. And, of course, unfortunately, we lost some key players at the end of the season, right at the end of the season. We went into the playoffs with both guards out, and that hurt. And, of course, we got beat by a couple points in Manhattan. But we were declared the national championship. They didn't go through the tournaments, so we were ranked number one. For our junior year is the year that we did the national finals and lost by 1 point. Of course, Jerry was in a little hot water in early in the second half, and they had to pull him for a few minutes. And during that time, we were ahead, and they bopped back on us, and we got him back, but we just couldn't. We had a last shot, but it wasn't a good shot. So, yeah. But anyway, our career as seniors went well, and we went to the regional finals and lost. But it was a great time for West Virginia, and the people there were just fantastic, and they'd be waiting on their plane to come in after certain games and everything. So it was really enjoyable.
I happen to be good friends with another person that you're probably good friends with, I'm sure, Tex Williams. And I know he had Jerry down at Artie. And I heard a guy yesterday on the radio talking. He was describing the hometown, and he said when you go down there, he said the reporter asked him, so what kind of place was it? And he said, well, there was a sign on one side that said Cabin Creek, and he said on the back side of the sign it had Shillian. So whichever way you're going, that's where you were at when you were down there. It was so small, but they talked about. Coming up in the smaller towns, and I mentioned Tex Williams and his Artie Museum, and I said, if you think Shillian and Cabin Creek area is small, you should go to Artie sometime. But I was fortunate enough to go down there when you guys were down there. Jerry spoke, and I told Frank and everybody I've talked to what a nice person, took his time with everybody, talked to everybody like he knew them forever. He was just an icon and is an icon in West Virginia. And I think back about you guys, yourself and Jerry West and Tex Williams. What a tremendous core of basketball and basketball history in teaching young people and guiding lives and that sort of thing. That we've been so fortunate to be associated with. And again, you included in that. You had 25 years at Logan High School, won several state championships there. Like I said, an icon in your own right. For those of us that coach basketball in West Virginia, knew about you and knew about your teams. What a phenomenal run you had at Logan. And I want to talk just a little bit about what guided you into coaching. And is it something you thought you would always do, or is it something that you just took a shot at and enjoyed it? You stayed in an awful long time, so you must have liked it.
Right. Well, I first started, I went to Cleveland and played with the Pipers, and that was the league. And Jerry is the one that got me there. Otherwise I wouldn't have had a chance getting in there, but he went with me. They were trying to hire him to play in that league. George Steinbrenner of the Yankees, and his young guy of the same age. But in long story short, I left there after a year, and Logan was looking for a coach, and they got it from West Virginia who was graduating. So they found out that I was leaving Cleveland, and I got some calls, and I went there. And the coach was there, had an 18-4 record, and they fired him. Well, I didn't know this, and they got rid of him. They had all kind of problems there. So finally, I ended up going to Logan, not knowing what was going on. But I got there, and there were a lot of talent coming. I could see it, and kids could jump and run and shoot, and so in fact, West Virginia University played William and Mary in the Logan Fieldhouse in 1958. Wow. And that was the first game ever played in the Fieldhouse. And I got there in 1961. So it was very long. So it was a great place, great Fieldhouse, and so on. But we just Logan people are out of this world. That's Mullins, where I was from. Those people were great, but we were bigger. Logan was bigger and much more had things going.
Yeah.
And we were our kids really loved basketball, and we had lots of camps that we went to, and turned in some great players.
I have some family member from down in the Mullins area. His name was Randy Biggs. I said,
I know.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say if anybody could run for mayor of Mullins and win with every single vote, it would be him because everybody down there knows him. But when I saw you from Mullins,
he was a good man. Yes, he was.
He's good. He married my sister.
Yeah.
Still doing well out in Virginia. Frank, you want to jump in there with a question?
Well, yeah, great. We've really enjoyed this. I've enjoyed it. I'm not only a host, I'm a fan too. One of the things that struck me, Willie, as I was doing research on this, and I didn't realize it until I did the research, is we talked today about, well, what's the capability of West Virginia high school boys to make it big at WVU? And I looked at the roster, 12 of the 15 players on that team, ranked number one, that went to the finals in the NCAA were Mountaineers. They were West Virginia boys. Only three, and one hardly doesn't count because he was from Bel Air, and that's right across the river from Moundsville. And the talent to be able to have a roster basically with the majority from West Virginia was a tremendous testimony to the quality of ball in West Virginia back in those days.
Yes, it was, and you're right. Everybody listened to the radio on Jack Fleming. You remember him, I'm sure.
Sure.
And I would keep score in 7th, 5th, 6th, or 8th. I had a scorebook that I kept, and I liked listening to Mark Workman. By the way, Mark was from Logan, West Virginia, as a 9th grader and moved to Charleston. And anyway, I followed that, and I played ball every day. I slept with a basketball. And at night, I would flip it. I'd lay there and flip it up like I'm shooting it. And so I slept with that ball, and I used it, and we played every day. In fact, I had on the playground, and this is a crazy story, I was smaller and younger, and these guys all playing, which were 3 houses from the playground. And my dad bought me a ball. It was called Pennsylvania ball, and very cheap, a good ball. But you could take it and send it back to them, and they re-vulcanize it. And I had that ball, and I'd go up, and we'd play with it because it was the best ball. Well, those older guys kind of shunned me back and wouldn't let me play. And so I'd get mad, and I'd say, I want to play. I'll whip it in a minute. As soon as that ball rolled down the road, I grabbed it and ran to my house. But then I would go back and play. But those are the days that were remembered by me and everybody.
You might have started that saying that take my ball and go home. So
that's what it is.
They been creative of that.
Yeah.
Finally, they started letting me play. So
yeah,
it was good.
That's great.
Willie, I put this picture up because it's such an important part of the storyline back then with Ann Denardi, and I was watching an event where Jerry spoke, and he talked about you as being his basketball soulmate, and it was incredible as I watched old films because Jerry was one of the scorers, but boy, you were an incredible rebounder. But this Ann Denardi played a very critical role in your time in Morgantown. Could you talk about her for a minute or two and the impact she had on the two of you?
I could talk to you about her for weeks. The most fabulous person I've ever been around, and she owned a drugstore, and her sister was with the Chico Dairy.
Oh, yeah.
And we moved in there. Hot Rod stayed there. And Joe Posh and Jerry and I moved in together. And she took care of us. She'd make us go to class. She'd come up the steps and throw water on you. And you better go up and go to class. You had to go. You might go to the mountain there, but you had to get out of the house. And she took care of us. Everything, if you had a girlfriend or talked to a girl, she either liked them or didn't like them. She really controlled us a lot, but she had a little old kitchen, and we'd sit there and talk at night, midnight, and she would stick pictures of the paper on the wall, and then the paint would come off. But don't worry about that. So she was that kind of person, and she was very instrumental in Jerry and I and many more. And she really took care of us. And to this day, my kids went to school there, and they were part of her. And it was something. And of course, no one could talk about Jerry or me. Don't talk about it. If they said anything, she'd get down her throat. But in fact, I was telling them a story the other day that we were upset with the food at the cafeteria. We were on the training table. And so we were in a battle with some of the football players with rolls. You roll them up, battle with each other. And we were in there, and Jerry took a piece of pie and put it on the end of the knife and flipped it, and it hit the ceiling. That was the big deal. And the woman called the security guard from the university. So we took off. The first place we go was over the hill, and Ann was home and told her, we said, we're in trouble. We did this and that. And that. She said, get your asses in this car and let's get across the state line to Point Marion.
Wow.
And I'm not letting them. So we went across the state line, and he was looking for us too. Got back and got it all straightened out.
Well, I'll tell you.
That took a little different turn than I thought it was.
Yeah. And you talked about you guys being straight. Well, you were students too. And I don't know if this was taken. Was that taken at her house? Do you remember?
That's her house right there. Yes, it is.
How about that? I thought it might be. And so I don't know if you're studying there, but you're certainly intent.
I wouldn't read the newspaper, sports department.
Very good.
Jerry was a very intelligent, and he didn't have to study. I had to study. So anyway, it was. Run that story on Ann. Can you run it back here?
The picture?
Yeah, that was. She's something. I'll tell you. She lived a long time and took care of a lot of kids, and she died giving all of her stuff to students, her nephews, and so on. So,
wow.
But we messed up. We missed it. We wanted to save that house, and that university got it tore down for the field house. But we should have had that house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One more question, and I'll kick it back to Greg. And it's this is one of my favorite pictures for a long, long time with you and Jerry and Fred Schaus. And of course, Fred Schaus followed Jerry to Los Angeles and was his head coach there. But obviously, Fred Schaus has a special place in the annals of West Virginia, both as a player, as a coach, and then as an administrator. And then he in terms of percentage, I think he may have the highest winning percentage of any coach that coached over 5 years. Talk a bit about Schaus.
Well, as you speak, I have that picture over there on my wall, and I thought he was the greatest coach alive. And of course, some disagree with me, some don't. But he, in fact, they call me Fred's baby, and they took care of me. I went from scoring player in high school to a defensive and and passing and setting picks and stuff and rebounding. I decided if I wanted to play, that's the easiest way for me to get into the game. And so I took that on myself, and I love to take charges and stuff like that. And Fred appreciated that. And he did a great job recruiting, great job coaching, and hated to see him leave. Of course, I got the opportunity to play all my years for him, and he left as Jerry did for LA. So there's no better. And of course, there's a lot of people think different of him. I don't know. I think everybody thinks he's a great coach and a good player, and has done wonders for West Virginia as well as his family.
You mentioned going to LA. I'm just curious. You were coaching at Logan, and of course Jerry, after his playing days, he coached at Los Angeles for a while. Of course, was a GM and all those. Everybody knows about that. Were you ever pulled that way? Was there ever an opportunity to say, "Hey, Willie, why don't you come to LA and help us out with the Lakers?"
Well, no, he offered. If I wanted to go, he would have taken me out there anyway. But it's a funny thing. He took me to Cleveland with him, and a Bucky Barger with us, and we got. He talked to Steinbrenner, and he came out and told us that he'll give you a contract. Said he wants me to come there. He said he'll give you a contract if you'll take it. That's the way we got to go to. I got to go to Cleveland and Bucky in. But anyway, that's the kind of guy Jerry was. And knowing they offered him oodles of money compared to what he got from the Lakers. He wanted to go to the Lakers and the NBA, and that's what he did. And we visited, and we were always together. The Green Barn when he comes in, and he had a home over there. And I was in a situation here at Logan that I had the players, I had the fans. We had a big stadium to play in, and I was offered jobs at West Virginia on a couple of occasions and turned them down. So I just didn't want to stay here. It was better for me here.
Right.
Even though 1 year I was just out of college, and they had an opening, and I was going with George King to be his assistant coach. Well, all of a sudden, he said he was going to Purdue, and he said, "You're welcome to keep this position that I offered you as assistant coach." Bucky Waters seemed different. He didn't particularly like the way I did with things, and so he turned me down, and I was glad he did.
I think it worked out for both of you. We're talking about Jerry's career. I know one of the things that I read and I hear a lot is how hard it was on him. He was in 9 NBA finals and was able to win one, but how hard it was for him to accept those defeats. I know that tormented him, I guess you could say. Did you all ever talk about that? I know the Celtics, of course, with Bill Russell and those guys were phenomenal teams. But did you guys ever discuss that?
Oh yeah, several times. He had basketball camps in Wahoo and outside of Charlotte and at VMI for years, and we would take 80 kids or more to that camp, and of course we had a good time there. And he was quite. After those games, he was very upset and always blamed himself.
Yeah.
But if you read in the paper today, he averaged unreal, and it was. Then they turned it when he lost. They gave him most valuable player, and so I don't know. But he had a hard time. One time against the Knicks, if you remember, he made a shot from 70 feet to tie the game.
Oh yeah.
Final game, and he made that shot. If it had been announced with a 3-point play, it would have been a game winner.
The winner, yeah.
And they ended up winning in overtime. So he had his ups and downs in that, but to this day, he's still worried about it.
Oh yeah,
forget it. So
yeah.
it's hard to
And,
get.
and oh yeah, but you look, we talked about his statistics there again. Frank and I the other night, his shooting percentage was unbelievable. They talked today about all these, the best scoring guard combos in the history of the NBA. And I'm thinking, oh wait a minute, they just not looked at Jerry West and Gail Goodrich. You look back at the stats and shoot his points per game and his shooting percentage is unbelievable. I mean, just unreal. And so he was a phenomenal player. And like you mentioned, being the most valuable player of the finals, being on the losing team, that don't happen every day.
No, it doesn't. For sure. He was amazing, and in my mind, he still is. And I'm here in Logan, and a day that if I'm out, it's not. How is Jerry doing? How's Jerry? It's just like I'm supposed to know everything. Of course, my wife Linda is close to Jerry's wife Karen, and they do a lot of talking and do a lot of whatever they're doing. And unfortunately, one thing, the Tuesday before, was it Monday? Monday? Tuesday, we sent a text to him, and and he got back with us, and he and his wife, and it was a real kind of sentimental thing.
Yeah.
So the next morning, he was dead, and I'm so glad to get that off to him.
Absolutely. Well, I tell you what, this has been fascinating, and I know we can go on for hours. But before we do sign off, Coach, we would just, if you want to take a few minutes and just talk, reflect a little bit on your guys' time together and what he meant to you. I think everybody knows what he meant to the state of West Virginia and really to the world with his talents and his grace and all that. But if you'll take a minute or two here before we sign off and just reflect a little bit on your guys' time together.
Well, it all started like in the 11th grade, and it ended. We were still together last year at the Greenbrier, and I fell 11 years ago and hurt destroyed my body. But I'm able to get around. But it's been good to be able to talk to people about him. I don't know what you can say other than I remember when he talked about hunting, fishing. He loved to do that. He lost a brother in the war, and that was his main problem. And he would, any problem that came up, he would go down to the river and fish. And if you're not familiar, there's a bridge going right across here where his house was. And I spent some time there. And so anyway, it's been a long, long time we've been together. And, we've never had an argument, believe it or not. Never raised a voice at each other. I was fortunate to have a car. I was there and for early years, I got a car my freshman second semester. And when we were living with Ann Denardi, I kept the keys in Ann's kitchen. And if he wanted to go somewhere, he'd just take off. So that's how close we were. And but he'd always be back. So anyway, it's what do you say about a guy like him? I don't know. I've known him all that years, and to this day, people they want to know. They want pictures. I had a request the other day. A guy wanted to see if I would, want me if I would do some things for him to get something from Jerry. But I told him it was too late. Linda and I don't know how many basketballs we have sent out. They'd bring them here, and they'd have them signed. And it was sometimes, and that's all. When we go to Greenbrier, he'd say, "How many you got now?" Linda would open the trunk, and here we'd up. stuff.
Yeah.
It was kind of fun.
Wow, Frank, anything you would like to say before we wrap up? I tell you what, it's been awesome.
Well, it's been an honor to get to talk with you, Willie, and thank you for all you've done over the years. And I know it's awfully difficult talking about someone you're very close to, particularly right after they passed away. But obviously, the two of you had a very rich relationship that was mutual. I was struck when I was watching that video the other day that he talked about you before he talked about his coaches. And that just shows you what an impact you had on his life. And I'm sure, I know it was the other way too. So thank you for spending time with us.
Thank you. And I'd like to say one last thing.
Absolutely.
There's 5 boys, and we're associated with them, particularly close with David, his oldest son, and Johnny, that played in West Virginia, and Brian, that is now with the Detroit team as a consultant. Johnny is with the Warriors. Jerry was with the Clippers, and so he made a turn. But those are good people and good kids. And Karen West, wonderful. His wife, he's done a good job of taking care of it. So.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, again, we can't tell you how much we appreciate this. And I know I of course didn't know Jerry West like you know Jerry West, but I've heard enough stories to know that he would want us to be celebrating his life and not mourning his death. And I know it's a hard thing and a hard way to look at it, but I know that's what he would want. And fantastic of you to take the time to share with us some personal memories of Jerry West. We all know about the athletic part. You know about the personal part, and that's fantastic. And also a pleasure for us to get to talk to, again, what we think is a basketball legend for sure in West Virginia. Talking to you was an honor for us as well. So thank you so much for taking some time
Thank
to be with us.
And I want to compliment my 2 boys, Chad and Darren, and particularly my wife, Linda, which is now taking care of me while I'm struggling a little bit. But she does a fantastic job. I give her a lot of credit for things going on.
That's right. Fantastic.
All
right. Thank you, Coach Akers. Fantastic job. And I'll tell you what, Frank, it doesn't get any better than this. I mean, when you're a human or a basketball person, whatever you might be, that right there is gold.
And, you know, it makes you proud to either be a West Virginian or to be associated with the state. I was thinking as Willie was talking, we really never talked about which to me is just phenomenal. And that is Jerry's ability as an executive. And we also didn't talk about the leadership roles that Willie played. He was a dean of boys. He was a assistant principal. He was also assistant superintendent. And so when you think about all the roles that we play in our lives, it's very unusual to find 2 people like Jerry and Willie who were really multidimensional. They could do a number of things really well to be in leadership roles, not just on the court, but also in organizations. And it just was great. So what a special opportunity. Again, thanks to Chad and Mike Dunlap for putting this together for us. And we had the honor of asking the questions and having a great experience.
Yes. And you know, I've talked about this several times with you and others. One of the fun things about doing stuff like this, you talk about the then and the now, is these guys that you talk to, like Willie Akers, and you talk about Jerry West, you talk about some of these other folks that we've had on. It's not, you know, their athletic prowess is you can see that it's there, and it's always amazing. But the other things that are fascinating and so enjoyable to talk to and talk about are the accomplishments or the things that they did outside of the sports world. And you realize what great human beings they are, and just fantastic people. And Coach Akers, you know, no different. And so what a great time. That was an awesome awesome interview, fun to talk to. Hopefully we can get him on again. And you just feel like you could talk for 2 or 3 hours with these people.
That's right.
These stories, but it's not always possible. But man, it really is. It really is fun to experience that, no doubt.
Excellent job.
Yep.
We'll do it again. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
All right.